Welcome back to another episode of Avid Outdoors podcast. We are sitting next to Josh Ermer of Gobbler Ridge Calls. Stick around. This is going to be fun. We're going to be talking turkey hunting and turkey calls in specific.
Hi, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dave.
We're charter captains from Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
We're also avid outdoorsmen. We love hiking, hunting, fishing, camping, and just being outside.
We want to connect you with the experts in the outdoors and hear your story.
We're stewards of this planet, and we want to make sure the hobbies we enjoy today are available for generations to come. This is Avid Outdoors.
How's it going, Avid Outdoorsman? I'm sitting next to one of my really good friends, Josh Ermer of Gobbler Ridge Calls, and it's late winter, early spring here. We're getting really excited for turkey hunting, so we thought we'd bring Josh on. Talk a little bit about his calls, his box calls that he's making. But Josh and I's relationship has been for a long, long time now. He was the best man in my wedding, and I kind of feel like he's got one of the better calls on the market right now. So with that being said, Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me.
Welcome.
So what do you got going on here with your call company? But, well, first of all, you've got a family. You're married with a wife and 2 kids. Yep. Very active outdoor family. Kind of give us a little bit of your background of your initial business that you're running right now, along with Gobbler Ridge Calls.
All right. So right now I own Ermer Sawmill right here in Plymouth, and basically just process logs into live edge slabs or dimensional lumber, and then also do custom woodworking with the product that I produce. So once I don't know, just about a year and a half ago, I started getting the itch to start making turkey calls again. I had made turkey calls back when I was in high school, and why not combine 2 passions, hunting and woodworking, and start making turkey calls again.
Awesome.
So now that I know, I have a lot more knowledge of wood and, how grains should be positioned on a call, I started messing around with it and just kind of went from there. So.
And you started doing the calls probably about 5 or 6 months ago, and things have taken off for you pretty good as far as the calls go. I mean, I know I've always come over to your house and played with one particular box call that you have, and it's like, oh man, this thing sounds really, really good. Yeah. And the frustration, I mean, you and I turkey hunt a lot together. Oh, yeah. And Dave and I are going to be doing a ton of turkey videos this year, and kind of expressing our passion towards that. The frustration on our level is when you go to buy a new call, they don't all sound the same. No. And so now with your calls, if I show up at your shop and you made me a call, I don't like how it sounds, you will tune it again, and it's a really cool process. So yeah.
I mean, if you show up at my shop and you're interested in a turkey call, not each one is going to sound exactly the same just because the wood grain is different in each piece. But you can play around with the calls and pick which one you like, because everybody's got their own ear for a turkey call. So I have my own ear, and I just try to tune them as best I can to what I feel is appropriate for that call.
Sure. So Tyler mentioned, you can bring it right to you to have it looked at again. Are you doing online sales, or right now is it just come to the shop or something? What's your game plan that way?
So right now, I do have a shop on Shopify. Built that up. Got the 2 products out that I have currently listed on there, with a couple more coming down the pipeline soon here, and I'm very anxious to get them uploaded and on the line. So I've got an Instagram page and a Facebook page for Gobbler Ridge Calls. So just kind of building it up and going from there.
Awesome. Sounds good.
And we'll link all of his link to his Shopify shop and his Instagram and Facebook pages all to our social media posts, so that you guys can have access to it. And Josh, even for some of the Avid Outdoors listeners and viewers, what are you going to do for us here?
Well, what are you talking about?
I don't know. We want to be able to track how many of you might be interested in getting a call. So if you want one of these calls, at the end of the show, we're going to have Josh run through some calls with us, and we're going to have videos and content coming out of us using the calls, especially this spring. But if they want to get a hold of you and get a Avid Outdoors kind of call to make sure that, you know, these listeners are getting the best there is, how can they do that?
So you can reach out to me on Instagram, and what we're going to do is we're going to do 10% off on calls. On my Shopify website right now, I don't have a way of linking that.
Okay.
So I want you, the viewers or anybody that's interested in a call, message me through my Instagram page and mention that you listen to the Avid Outdoors podcast, and we'll give you 10% off at the checkout. And yeah,
That's awesome.
It'll be a good way to track everything. So
Incredible. That's a deal you can only find here. You heard it
There
first.
you go.
Yeah.
you
There
heard
you
it
go.
So getting into things, it's like we said, it's late winter, early spring. Let's talk turkeys.
Oh, I'm fired up for turkey.
Oh my goodness.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So Dave, when's your turkey tag?
My tag is for the first week. It's kind of a ways off yet, so I haven't looked at the exact date. There's so much stuff. Like I've got podcasts to edit, I've got videos to edit. Unfortunately, I don't even know the exact date of it, but I do have Wisconsin week 1. I am fired up about it. For a while, I did not apply for week 1 because you never really know what you're going to get with weather. And I guess I kind of turned into one of the snobs, if you will, like, you know, gotta get week 1 type of deal. So I've been applying for week 1 recently, and, you know, you get out there before anybody else has had a chance. And luckily I've been getting my first preference lately, which I don't know.
Well, you are the third person I have heard that has period 1.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody else. I've just within the past week, you're the third person.
Yeah.
So
I used to
good.
always go for like season 3 or even later, just because the weather is a little bit more stable. You know you're not going to get like that high wind, or there's less chance to get that high wind, snow, like and sleet and stuff. Like even the snow isn't all that, you know, but like it gets so nasty, and you can pretty much set your clock on it, you know. But you know, I've had some decent luck recently with that week, so might as well give that a shot. How about you, Tyler? How many tags you have?
I have 4 turkey tags this year, which is the most I've ever had. But
not like he's greedy
you know,
or anything.
like, I just figured, hey, I'm gonna have some time this spring to do some turkey hunting, get some on video. But I have period 2, I have the whatever B, I have E, and then 2 tags for F. So early, and then 2 in late May. So those sometimes the birds can get a little tough in the later part of May, but we'll give it a whirl.
At least the weather is nice. I always like to say that's the best time if you've ever considered hunting naked.
except the
well, you won't
ticks.
catch me.
Yeah. Hey, those ticks are no joke.
Yeah.
I've already gotten one, and
know.
like we said, it's late winter, not even early spring yet, and with how mild it was, like, oh my gosh, like, it makes me nervous a little bit. But
So when are we chasing Josh's turkeys?
So I have week 3, and then I actually bought the last season tag, and then once let's see, then I'm gonna get at least 1 tag for zone 1 for the 4th period.
Nice.
I know it's quite a bit, but I'm thinking I'm gonna pick up 2 tags for zone 1 since I'll be there.
Yeah,
I might as well
yeah,
spend a couple days down there and
Yeah.
try to kill a couple birds. So
So
sounds good.
a little bit on the history and the conservation of turkeys in Wisconsin. We're talking about zones, we're talking about time periods and stuff. So in Wisconsin, we have, is it 7 zones?
oh, man,
Or is it 5 zones?
I think it's
I don't know. We live in zone 2.
yeah.
Zone 1 is southwestern Wisconsin. So, with that being said, we get 7 days to hunt. We can hunt from sun up till sundown, but that's not usual. Normally, and so ours starts on a Wednesday and ends on a Wednesday. When I was younger, it started on a Wednesday, ended on a Sunday, And before that, it started on a Wednesday, ended on a Sunday, but you could only hunt till like noon or 1
o'clock or something like that.
Well,
Yeah.
that's how Illinois is set up.
Yeah. So
And it went to at one time it went to 5 o'clock, and then they
Yeah.
let you hunt all the way till dark, and then they opened it up to hunting on Monday and Tuesday as well. So
And that's been
it's been a while, yeah.
It's been a while, but it was definitely. I mean, I
like
don't know, within
less
like-
than 5 years.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And I started hunting maybe I guess about 20 years ago, you know, and so all of those changes have taken place in that span of time. So yeah, same. I started hunting when it was a 5-day season. I think they shut it down at 1 o'clock. So, you know, I couldn't come home after school and continue to hunt.
Right.
And then I remember my first, you know, after a couple of years, then it was like race home after school so you could get out there until 5 o'clock, you know, which you can't get them going to the roost or anything, which, you know, ethically, who knows? I mean, that might not have been the best anyway, but, but at least you had more of a chance, you know, after 5 p.m. But, yeah, it's amazing how the population has grown in that amount of time that we're confident to give out that many tags, let people hunt that long. It's really tipped the scales in favor of the hunters, but that's because we have the population to do it.
Which at one point in time we didn't. They were reintroduced when I have Josh might know more about this than what I do.
We can go into a little depth of that.
Yeah,
We can do that.
that'd be
Yeah.
great.
What do you know about the history of turkeys in Wisconsin, Josh?
So back in, I think the last actual wild turkey that was spotted was in 1880s,
Wow.
and that was the last time an actual live bird was had seen alive. And then, so basically, they tried reintroducing them to the state multiple times over. I don't know, I think it was in the late 80s they tried it, and then in the late 1920s, and then they tried it again in the 50s. And it was until we made a trade with Missouri. We traded them rough grouse, and then they traded us like 300 some turkeys.
Wow.
So we made a little trade with them, and obviously it worked out pretty well. And actually in Sheboygan County alone, we didn't have turkeys reintroduced here until I think it was the mid 80s.
Wow.
And actually the Learn to Hunt program that Tyler and I we participate in and are mentors for, a couple of those mentors were part of the reintroduction. So that's pretty cool to get the stories from that.
That is cool, yeah.
And actually what happened when they reintroduced them to the county, we had a winter storm that came in. They had like a dozen birds, and they had this storm coming in, and they actually camped out with these turkeys to make
Wow.
sure they survived. So
That's awesome.
it's called dedication right
Yeah.
there. I mean, it was such a huge event to bring these turkeys back here, and you know,
Yeah.
and it's been tried over the last almost, was it like 95 years basically,
Yeah.
to reestablish the population, and now look at it.
Yeah, I think the first one that I ever saw, my parents have had the same property. The property's been in the family since the 1840s. And the first one I remember actually seeing was maybe early 2000s, you know, 2001 or something, 2002. And I remember seeing that first one. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like finally we got them. Because, you know, they were popping up in different areas, and obviously populations were growing and this and that. And it didn't take long. And it was like 4 or 5 years later, we had like a serious population on my parents' property.
That's awesome.
And you know, it was nothing to see 4 or 5 strutting toms all at one time. And it's like,
Gets the blood flowing.
yeah.
But you know, like even the first hunt that actually took place in Sheboygan County was in the early 90s.
Yeah.
So they let it build
That's
up
cool.
for
Yeah.
a number of years, and then we started getting decent numbers, and it kind of went from there.
Yeah,
So,
now it's like you drive down any road, and if you don't see turkeys, that's rare, you
Yeah.
know? So
Oh, yeah.
that's awesome. I love
Yeah.
seeing them. They're great wildlife to watch, and
Yep.
they've got their own behaviors, and certainly a very entertaining little piece of wildlife.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
entertaining is a great way. I mean, if you're listening and you've never turkey hunted, or you know somebody that's never turkey hunted, it is probably the single best way to get somebody into hunting.
Oh my gosh.
Couldn't
yeah.
agree more.
Because, if you do it right, it's not, generally you don't have to sit in one spot for hours upon end. I mean, you can kill lots of turkeys doing it.
Oh yeah.
But a lot, like Josh and I, we like to run and gun. We like to get close to them under the roost in the morning. If that doesn't work out, we're up and at them and moving.
Pretty aggressive.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. But it's just cool. You get to interact with this turkey who's
there's
gobbling.
there's a lot of room for mistakes too.
Absolutely.
Because not maybe on one bird, but like there's going to be another bird that you can go after,
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But now we're, like we said a couple times now, it's weeks before the season. The earliest thing that we were supposed to have was the mentor hunt, which got canceled because of the learn to hunt. Yep, which got canceled due to what's going on in the country right now with COVID-19. But that's gone and over with. So now the youth hunt is going to be the next one. So now we're out scouting, even though it's weeks before the season. It's time to find these birds, and right now a lot of them are going to be in large groups, all henned up. Like the other day, I drove past one of my spots and I saw 10 adult toms. I saw a group like 5, probably 2-year-old birds, and then another group of birds that were older than that because they were just beating up on the other ones. It was fun to watch.
That's awesome.
But so let's talk a little bit about scouting in this time of year. What are we all doing to prepare ourselves for the season? I think, I just posted, or I will be posting a video coming up of patterning guns and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think it's a great time to be doing those things. So
Definitely.
what's Dave been up to turkey wise?
As far as turkey hunting is concerned, I this time of year I'm walking my property just to kind of see what I have for roost trees. Typically from year to year, you'll find them in the same type of areas, and at this time it's pretty early to really get a pattern on like what's going to happen for your season. So even if I'm seeing birds right now, I'm gonna kind of take that with a grain of salt, because I know that their patterns are going to change before season starts up, with how they'll get into their mindset of getting the lockdown on hens and things like that. So their mind isn't in the exact same place, but I like to know where the hens are, how many hens are in the area, that sort of thing. And that's basically through not only seeing birds like in fields and whatnot, but going through the pine plantations, seeing what's there for droppings, seeing what's there for feathers and tracks and things like that. That's my early season scouting, because in another couple of weeks, when they start to get their strutting patterns down, they're going to be in the same spots that they were out in the open last year. Yep. Or again, the other nice thing about turkey hunting is it's so responsive that even if they're within earshot, you've got a chance to kill a turkey in a place that they don't necessarily want to be. Like if you get close, you can kind of pull them in. That depends, obviously, on a number of different factors, like how many hens you have, but you don't always have to be under their roost tree right at sunup. Right. You know what I mean? You've got plenty of opportunities throughout the day. So as far as scouting goes, I'm not hardcore. I just kind of am looking at what my population is at the moment.
And I think with that being said, it's still early enough where there's snow on the ground, but once we lose the snow, things will change. Because early season turkeys, and Josh, I don't if you disagree with me, but I think early season turkeys aren't worried about the breeding side of things as much as they are food. They're hitting up the winter wheat fields that have been planted from last year. I see a lot of turkeys in plowed or tilled cornfields because there's still grain left in that field. Now the toms are there because the hens are there, and the hens are there because they're worried about the food. Mm-hmm. So there's not a whole lot of breeding action going on in the first week or two of the turkey season. Granted, you get a later, especially if you get a later winter. This year, things are milding up real early. Already seen a few birds strutting. Probably going to get more and more prevalent in the next weeks to come. But I think when you see birds in a field, especially after you lose snow, that's the field that they're going to be using for probably the next 2 to 3 weeks until those flocks start busting up and turning into way more geared towards breeding than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. The toms are starting to get worked up a little bit.
Yep.
But yeah, like you said, they're definitely hitting the food sources yet. And once the snow starts to melt, more food's going to become readily available. The ones that they've been trying to get at but couldn't because of the snow.
And then when the temperatures during the day start rising and we lose the frost, that will change the dynamics of the turkeys from, especially the toms. I guess you could say it with the hens too, because they're going to try to feed in woods or in especially hardwoods where there's going to be fresh greenage and fresh shoots popping up. There's going to be old acorns on the ground, because the hens don't want to be bothered by the toms most of the time. Until they're ready to be bred, they're not going to want to be bothered. So a lot of times, if we get a mild spring or mild winter, early spring, in years past during the mentor hunt, which is 2 weeks before the normal turkey season in Wisconsin, I've noticed that sometimes the birds are a lot in the woods. They're relating to the woods. They want to stay in there because if it gets windy or really crappy weather, they have some place to kind of hide. Yeah. So, early season, in my opinion, weather is just the key factor on where the birds are going to be. Yeah. When, if it's mild fields, or if it's mild and you lose snow early, they're probably going to be relating to the woods more. If it's a late winter and we're just starting to lose snow when that season comes along, they're going to probably be in the fields.
Yeah. No, going back to the weather patterns and everything, like it looks like we're pretty fortunate right now having a mild winter. I mean, we really haven't had a nasty winter, which is good. So that'll shape up to a really good early season. Yep. Me personally, you said you had the first period. I'm always hesitant to apply for the first period because historically, for the Learn to Hunt program, it's been a blizzard one year and then it'll be 50, 60 degree weather the next year.
Yeah.
It'll just be a pattern like that.
Yeah.
But last year, it was nice out, and then now it looks like we're in good shape of a good early spring, but no, I definitely agree with the points that you pointed out as far as the behavior of turkeys early on and as we progress through the season.
Yeah, and also kind of talking about weather, I think what's kind of unique about turkey hunting especially is that you'll have those days when you're driving down the road, it's beautiful conditions and whatnot, and the birds are out strutting, and you seem to think to yourself, gosh, these are the days that you want to be out hunting, right? And obviously the birds are all fired up, and you'll see them interacting. The toms and the hens are interacting. Oddly enough, my best turkey hunting has been right after a rain or in some of the nastiest stuff, because the hens will be turned off, right? Yep. And the toms will be still looking, trying to find something, because they're always going to be raring to go. They've just got that in them that they've got to be ready for a hen no matter when it is. Yep. The hens, they're temperamental. They're going to be receptive at certain times, but the toms have to know immediately when that's going to be. So I've had extremely good luck on those days when I've not wanted to get out of bed, and was reluctant to do that. And I think those are the times where you really tip the odds in your favor when you can get the hens shut down, you know? So I think those are really important times to key in on. You might be a little bit sluggish to get out yourself, but gosh, so you have to do that, I think.
Well, you point out, you make a good point there, and I'm going to try to stay on track here because I might go all over the place, but the timing, as far as a tom wanting, is always out searching. He's always out searching for birds, and I've always had really good luck midday too.
Mm-hmm.
I've killed quite a few birds in the middle of the day when all the hens are back on their nest.
Right.
And I mean, we could talk about that later
Well,
too.
especially
but
later in the season.
Later in the season, yeah. But even I mean, a lot of hens are laying on their nest.
It turns into a time again that the hens are not going to be receptive because they've already gotten exactly what they need. They walk off on their own and then they sit on a nest. Well, Tom's not going to stick around. They're going to be out looking for another one. They're not. They're players.
Big time.
So as we're moving closer to the season, every year, and people might laugh at me, I shoot my gun.
Oh yeah.
I think it's a good thing to do. So I shoot what do I shoot? Oh, a Browning. I shoot a Browning Maxus with just the standard manufacturer full choke, and that gun, it patterns extremely well with a 3.5-inch Browning turkey load out to 40 yards. Now, I did pattern my 20 gauge today because I just got my new choke tube for my 20 gauge, and I patterned heavy shot in this 20 gauge out to 50 yards.
Nice.
Wow.
50 yards with 20 gauge. Mm-hmm. So I think it's good to learn your limit on your gun.
Definitely.
I mean, in like every gun shoots differently with different shells. So like my Maxus with a different Browning load shoots low and to the right. So obviously that one's not in for me, but so that's kind of a big thing is patterning your gun, making sure your equipment's ready to go for the year. I know Josh shoots this like slug barrel of a freaking turkey gun.
It's a turkey gun.
Yeah.
It's a turkey gun.
At 20 yards, you're literally shooting a slug at the turkey with a turkey gun. It's insane. But
yeah, so I bought a turkey. I don't know. I bought this turkey gun back in 2009, and it's a Mossberg 835 pump. It's got the thumb hold stock, and I don't know, man. I'm addicted to that gun, and it's my go-to gun. Obviously, it's a turkey gun, but it's just a cannon, and
Nice.
it's got an Altai full choke, and honestly, I never patterned my gun until like a couple of years ago. I started doing it, and boy, you learn a lot from patterning your gun.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you got a few hundred BBs flying out of that shell, but there could also be pretty consistent open patches in your pattern at the same distance. So I think it's very important to know that before getting out in the field.
Exactly.
That's a matter. That could determine a dead turkey or a turkey that's running away.
An Altai full choke, how far can you kill a turkey, Josh?
I don't know exactly how far, but the furthest I did kill one was 52 yards.
That's a
And
lot.
honestly, if I would have known how far that bird was, like I didn't have a range on him or anything, but he was a big bird, and I'm like, oh, he's walking away, so I'm just gonna throw one at him.
Yeah.
and
Yep.
it worked out.
And our previous guest, Pete Sankbile, he patterns his gun, like, I don't know how this guy has so much time, but like he patterns his gun out to 70 yards. Like he knows
smokes.
that where his BBs are going to land at 70.
Well,
That's not saying like, I'm not like encouraging anybody to
Right,
shoot out to 70
right.
yards, but
It's
if you're
good to
going
know.
to, like, you better have patterned that gun. Like,
exactly.
I'm not making that shot.
No,
like,
exactly.
I'm not going to pattern my gun out that far. And I'm not taking that shot, like 40 yards to me, that's a poke,
Yeah.
I've
Right.
gotten one at 41 yards. That's my longest shot. And the bird dropped deader than a doornail. But I don't ever think to myself like, oh, it's now or never. Like I got to take that shot at 70. Otherwise I'm not,
yeah.
so that's the way I feel about it. I feel ethically like I'm going to have another opportunity, or that bird is just going to get away and
Right.
I'll be fine with that. Like, so, you need to make that decision, but gosh, if you're taking a shot that far, you've got to know what you're doing.
Definitely.
and for people who have been hunting a long, long time, shot shells have changed a lot
Oh yeah.
in the last 3 to 5 years. I mean, there's tungsten shot out there now. There's like the shot that I'm using is a 2 size shot load, so you're getting smaller BBs and bigger BBs. So definitely to go out and learn stuff about these shotgun shells will make you a more ethical hunter. So that's kind of our little rant
Exactly.
about patterning
Yeah.
your gun.
And I don't think we should neglect stick and string hunters either,
No.
because
no.
That's
I
man, I shot a turkey with the bow, and I tell you what, you better practice, because
Yeah.
they say archery hunting is a game of inches. Well, I mean, when you're talking about turkeys, you're talking about a game of millimeters.
Yeah.
If you hit the wrong wing bone or the wrong set of feathers with your archery equipment, you're not getting the penetration to kill that bird.
Right.
yeah.
So
I really took that to heart. Long before I ever even tried bow hunting turkeys, a friend of mine had tried it, and he, had wounded 2 different birds, and they ran off, and he wasn't able to find them. So like that was obviously my worst nightmare. I was thinking about exactly where I'm going to be placing shots and things like that, and luckily I've just been lethal, like I haven't had one run off on me yet, and it can knock on wood, I guess, but it's been good for me. But I practice, and make sure that things are good, and I'm excited about it. I started out bow hunting turkeys probably because I got a little bit too confident with the gun, and
Yeah.
I was humbled fairly quickly, I would say. I mean, I have missed many opportunities, with the bow that I could have had with the gun. Just, when I'm talking about range, I limit myself to 40 yards with a gun, but like 25 with the bow max, on a turkey, and if things aren't just right, well, then that turkey's walking. So it's just kind of the way things are going. But I think at the moment that's going to be my goal, is to get another one with the bow this year. So.
I think with me having multiple tags too, I think I might take the bow out one time, or at least one period or whatever. But I'm taking out my 4-year-old this year, so I think I'm going to be taking the bow out with him, so that way he doesn't get shy from the gun blast.
Has he gone out before with you?
He has not. We're pretty adamant with him getting outside and being outside. So we take him shed hunting and hiking and all that stuff. And just recently now that my youngest is a little over a year now, so I can strap him on my back and away we go. So
awesome.
It's important to get them out.
Yeah. That'll be a fun one. Hopefully we can maybe even get that one on film, and have that. That'll be a good hunt, especially if you get to see birds. He's gonna go crazy. But so as we're talking about guns and early season hunting, but big thing that is a hot topic is just decoy, like decoy setups and things of the sort. There's so many different. There's so many different decoy brands on the market. You still have the cheapo Fleet Farm styrofoam turkeys that they've worked in the past, but in recent years, I've had a lot of turkeys come right into the decoys, and it's fun when that happens. I guess Josh, talk about your decoy spread and what you're going to run at different times of the year.
So, I have my own personal setup that I like, and I know sometimes it's different from yours. And we hunt, like we said before, we hunt a lot together during spring turkey. I mean, you ask my wife, I'm like never around during turkey season. So, for me personally, and I started using this setup a couple years ago. One of the guys that was in the Learn to Hunt program was like, well, try this once. And so I tried it, and man, it worked. I always like to put a hen decoy laying on the ground like she's ready to breed. I always like to have that option out there. And then I'll also have another hen decoy out, 1 or 2 feeding or walking hen decoys. But I always have one on the ground.
Sure.
Because, I mean, if there's a hen that's laying on the ground and that Tom sees that, it's like, oh, well, she's ready
Game
to go.
on.
So let's go. And he's going to, it's been a killer setup.
Sure.
But I've also had awesome setups where you put a Jake out, and I'm always hesitant with putting Jakes out because you never know. But it always seems like with Tyler's setup, they always
works every time.
It works every time.
It's like
I swear, you turn it one way and it changes the whole game.
Oh yeah.
But that's my personal setup. Is I like to have 2 or 3 hen decoys, and like I said, sometimes I'll throw a Jake out depending on what time of the season it is.
So you're not dead set on like strutting tom decoys or breeding tom decoys or something
So
like that.
I've got a strutting tom decoy, and I'll whip it out. I'll bring it along, and especially if we're running and gunning, and if we're in an open area or something, I'll get behind that thing and crawl.
Yeah.
Like
As long as you're in a safe spot.
As long as I'm in a safe area, and
right.
Yeah. So
private land.
Exactly.
Obviously.
I definitely don't do that on public land.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I bring it along, but it's not like I need it there. So, I mean, you can't go wrong with just hen decoys.
That's something I never even considered. My go-to has always been two hens and a jake, and some days it works, some days it doesn't. But I'll definitely give that a try. Just going full hen.
Yeah. See, I'm kind of back and forth with it. I do like Josh's decoy spread. A lot of times in the early part of the season when they're still flocked up, I'll run 2 hens and a jake, or even 3 hens and a jake. Depends on how far of a walk I have. And if I have that spread, I'll put 1 hen on the ground, but I'll leave the jake off of it 5 or 6 feet, and then leave that other hen away from those 2. And generally speaking, it looks like, in my mind, like if you have a tom that's really active and wants to just beat up on a jake, he's going to come in and do it.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a tom that's hesitant, keeping that jake off of that hen will still allow for that tom to have strutting room around that hen that's laying down. So I feel like that's a really good setup. Now, as the season goes on, a lot of times I'll drop down to just a hen and a jake, and most of the time that hen's on the ground. And that jake is getting closer and closer to that hen as the season goes on, eventually to end up on top of her. And then those toms just go ballistic. Like they'll come in and just beat them up. But, then everybody has their own way that they want to have their own decoy spread. But one thing that I've done in the last 3 years or so is I always carry a tom fan with me. And last year when I was hunting with Josh, man, it paid off huge. Like if you're hunting, so the scenario that I use it a lot on, the scenario I use it a lot on is when I'm hunting ridges, or if I'm set up on a field edge and the turkeys can see you from a long ways away, and you get a tom that's hung up at 100+ yards, you take that fan, you raise it up, and then you set it back down, you raise it up, you set it back down. And a lot of times that little bit of motion, if you're in thick cover, will bring those birds closer to you. They might not come in, but they'll maybe give you a second look. Now, another thing is in ridges, I'll use it so I can come up over the top of a ridge behind it. And if there's a bird on the other side, sometimes if they're a ridge or 2 over, they'll see that fan pop up, and then you bring it back down, and that'll entice them to want to come closer.
Piques their curiosity.
Yep. Now, last year, Josh and I,
insane.
This was like one of the craziest hunts ever, and we didn't even kill a bird.
Well, that's my brother's fault.
His brother didn't shoot. But we were sitting up on a ridge on public land, probably about 75 yards off the property line, and we were overlooking this huge hardwood bottom, and the private property was onto a winter wheat field. And the birds roosted where we were sitting.
Yep.
And so we were hoping to catch them on their way back from the roost. But sometimes they roosted across the field. So when these birds came out, it was super, super windy day. So we had the box calls with us. Oh, yeah. And we were calling extremely aggressive and extremely loud. And these birds, like a huge group of birds, came out into the field, probably about 300 yards from us.
Easily.
And they were way out there. And you could watch them in your binoculars, and you could call as loud as you could, and you could see them gobble, but you couldn't hear them gobble because it was so windy.
But you could tell they were reacting to the calls.
So
they were very aggressive with calling back. They were. It was awesome.
Really cool to watch because you don't get to see that all the time, when you're that far away. And we had decoys out, but I'm sure they could see them, but there was no motion or anything to really catch their attention. So we started calling, and I started bringing that fan up, and 2 toms from 300 yards away, which were all henned up, just started beelining it across this field right to us. And they came right up that ridge, 15 yards, and there was a little bit of brushing
maybe
away.
20,
Yeah,
maybe 20.
It was close.
It was close, though.
And, his brother did the ethical thing and just didn't feel like he was going to be able to make an ethical shot
with the amount
on
of
the
brush.
turkeys,
Yeah.
which when you're shooting that close and you got that many pellets going at him, that's what the first shot is for. You clear the way, and then here comes the second one. But, I mean, that was just a learning experience to me to know how effective that this fan is. And it fits in your pack. It doesn't take up any more room than necessary. And it is by far the number one game changer in the last few years that I've used. My mom and I killed a double over it last year on the second season. And we came up over ridge. Turkeys were at the bottom. We kind of spooked them. I threw up the fan. They stopped. Boom, shot a double. So that would be my biggest suggestion.
And I think after that hunt that we had, where we pulled them birds from like 300 yards away, that was like, that opened my eyes to having that fan in my pack at all times, like no matter what, because that was the difference that day. They were responding to calls. They probably most likely seen the decoys.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you threw that fan up, man, that was a game changer. So.
So as we're coming into, when we get into the season, we still continue to scout, but we don't want to spook these turkeys. So our scouting consists of a lot of time spent in the truck. We'll listen in the morning and at night if we're hunting if it's our season. But one thing that a lot of people, you'll hear this saying if you're in the turkey realm of things, is roosted ain't roasted. So we'll go and roost birds. Dave knows all too well about how roosted ain't roasted. So we'll roost birds, but the situation has to be right in order to want to get underneath those birds.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are you talking as far as you're out in the woods roosting them birds, like calling them and put them up in the roost, or are you?
Yeah.
Okay. See, and I personally have never done that.
Yeah.
So I have never, I've tried, but I know where the properties that I hunt, they generally roost in the same areas, but there are a lot of occasions where roosting the birds will be your best option.
So when you say, we hunt a lot of private land and hunt properties that I've hunted for years. So knowing where those birds are going to go, but if I'm going to hunt a new property or public land, you're going to probably want to roost birds at night or listen in the morning and find the roost. But I don't know. I don't have luck with birds off the roost. I just don't. I rarely ever hunt them right off the roost. I've spooked way too many birds going into the roost.
See, one of the farms I hunt, I get right underneath them. I mean, I make sure I'm out there an hour before sunrise, and that way when you get in there, you settle down, everything settles down, and then usually you can get pretty darn close to them. So but you have to know where they're roosting.
So I typically, my go-to spot is pretty much the same every single year, right? It's my first option. It's what I think is my best odds of getting one opening day right away in the morning, right? I'm going to definitely try to get there. And I've got all sorts of other backup spots for if that fails and whatnot. But typically there is a tom within that woods that I'm kind of sitting on the edge of a woods and a field, right? And they'll typically be with, in one of a couple of different trees. And I'm kind of under the same belief as Tyler is, you don't want to get in there and risk spooking them. When it's that dark, you run the risk of just stepping on a stick that you don't see, that sort of thing. And it doesn't take much sometimes to get those birds to just fly out of there. And because they fly out of there, that doesn't mean that it's over either. There's definitely an opportunity to call at them after that point. However, they're not right there anymore, So I think if you can get into at least a zone where they're going to be responsive to you, hopefully there aren't hens in between you and that point, because the hens are going to compete, and they can get nasty at times, like, and you'll know at those times when they are nasty, because they'll be balking at you far more than they're going to be talking with their boyfriends, you know? Yep. But I'm kind of in the same boat. Even if you get close to them and in their zone, there are still times that they have their minds made up before they ever even fly down. Oh, yeah. And I think in those instances, it's definitely important to not overcall, because the more you call right when you're right there by them, you know, they're 30 yards away, yep. The more opportunity for mistakes. And that's the time, you know, you throw out a few soft calls, just let them know where you are, and then you shut up, because sooner or later the curiosity is going to get the better of them.
Yeah, just keeping it soft and sweet, I think,
yep.
is the ticket there.
Yeah, and you know, it doesn't. I mean, just whatever you can do, just to say, "Hey, I'm here." You know, like that's it. Now that. I like calling. Like, I think that's the best part about about spring turkey hunting is because you call, they call back, and it's the most fun. So it's hard to sit there and be quiet, especially in that when that call is already in your mouth or in your hand, you know, and you're working it. It's an impressive feat of will, you know, like to be able to lay off of that. But I think it's very, very important. And I think the more curious you can get a Tom in you, just to think like that, you know, that hen wasn't there last night, was it? Was it? You know, that sort of thing. Like,
exactly.
Yeah. Play the mind game, because the more opportunity that you give him to figure you out, the lower your odds are.
You know, and going back, touching base on the scouting aspect of things, when it comes to public land, I think it's extremely important to have boots on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be out, you know, looking and, you know, just walking the properties that we all have access to,
right?
And checking out areas where it could be possible roost trees as far as the amount of droppings or scrapes on the ground from where turkeys are feeding sources, stuff. Yep. You know, I think we have a pretty good mix of public and private land that we hunt, mainly more private, but there's also still those pieces of public land.
Yep. They can't be overlooked.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so where a lot of people, or some people may not be fortunate to hunt private, putting boots on the ground in the public lands, trying to locate these turkeys, you have to be out and putting the scouting and all the time in.
And I think you bring up a good point too, because turkey hunting is not the same as deer hunting, right? Deer are revered, right? In our state, if you ask somebody to hunt their property for deer, I'm not going to say every single time they're going to say no, but you have a much lower chance of getting access to a spot for deer hunting than you would with turkey hunting. Yep. Everybody and their brother deer hunts, whether they're a deer hunter or not. You know what I mean? Yep. Like they go out there and they sit with a gun in their lap for the full 9-day season, or maybe just opening weekend, or just maybe one afternoon or something. But they say to themselves, I'm going to hunt. This is my property. I've got it. We're going to hunt it. With turkey hunting, it's anybody's guess. Not everybody turkey hunts. Yeah, there's a fair number. And even on private lands, you're going to have competition with the person who's sitting on the next piece over. But there are definitely opportunities for private land that you will not have with the deer hunting situation.
I think in our area, we're very fortunate to have the Kettle Moraine National Forest.
Yes.
We have great public lands butting up against private lands that these birds are using. Mm-hmm. So we have, I know a lot of people that, I have a really good friend that's too bashful to go ask for permission. Why? I don't know. What's the worst thing that he says is no.
Mm-hmm. I was going to bring that up too.
Yep. So he hunts all public land, or hunts properties that aren't even near here because that's where his family owns land. But there are tons of public land. I mean, I can think, just when
Thousands
you guys were talking, I thought of 6 or 7 different spots that I know where there's birds. I may hunt them, I may not, throughout the year. And as the thing is that what changes or gives people bad taste of public land, especially, I mean, deer hunting is a lot of people, but
Deer hunting is in a category in itself.
yeah, but
Yep.
turkey hunting, you get a lot of people, right? But the thing is there's a lot of people out there that are blind sitters. So they'll put up a blind, they sit, they wait for the birds to come through and all sort of stuff. But if you actually put forth an effort to get to where these birds are or want to go, and as the pressure continues to rise, they're not going to just leave a woods entirely. They're going to stay there because when they find a roosting spot, it's because they feel safe there. There's big enough trees. They don't feel as though there's predators there. They're not going to leave it. So you can continue to hunt those birds for a long, long time. You just have to put in a little more effort, being a little bit more stealthy, and it comes down to a lot of it, I believe, is calling. I think people on public land will overcall a bird 9 times out of 10, and that's why they don't shoot them.
I think the most important thing to locating birds is getting out super early in the morning, well, even before the season, and just listening to the birds gobble on the roost.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is the best way to locate.
It's fun too.
Bird. Exactly.
Very fun.
It gets you fired up. I mean, that's the advantage of turkeys, hunting turkeys is they gobble on the roost. You can figure out where they're going to be roosting. And, one flock could have a handful of roosting areas, but they're going to generally be in that same area.
Yeah.
And I think just getting out, putting time in the woods and listening to those birds. And I don't know.
Yeah.
And this time of year, there's no better way to do it than go out and go shed hunting.
Oh, yeah.
Get your family out because you don't have to be quiet. You don't have to worry about it. If you see the turkeys, whoopee ding. You've got weeks until the season, but now you can find those roosting areas. You get out. Now this will probably air about mid-April, so we're gonna be into the turkey season already. But for future use, now you go out, you take your family shed hunting. You go and you find tracks, you find the roosting areas, and now you have a base of why, okay, you might be on a piece of property and you don't hear anything from the road, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. They might just be over a few ridges or the wind direction's wrong where you can't hear them. So now if you get a rough estimate of where these turkeys are, you go back in there and then you listen to them a few days before the hunt just to confirm their location, but you're like taking bits and pieces and puzzling it together to get to where these birds want to be, and then you kill them, or harvest them, whatever you want to say. But it's not a lot of the turkey hunts I've been on, especially when I first started turkey hunting, I'd hunt 5, 6 days, 7 days before you killed your turkey. Well, now it's a little different because you got to learn these properties and how they use it. But with that being said, I've had seasons where I hunt 7 days and never killed anything.
Yep.
So
me too.
It's
Me
frustrating.
Too.
Yep. Yeah.
But I think it always seems like the turkeys throw you for a loop. And I think that's the most fun about it. It's like you get to interact with these birds and they always just seem to throw you something a little extra.
You have no idea how many times I've had one come in and it's like, all right, it's going down, and you like get so excited and you tense up and your like heart is beating. And it's like, this is it. And then like at the last second, they're like, oh I'm just going to go,
and then if he hangs up at 50 yards and you didn't pattern your gun.
Yeah.
Right. If I would have patterned my gun at 50 yards, I could have probably smoked that bird.
Yep. But again, I just kind of feel as though it's, now I have more opportunity, that sort of thing. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you can obviously, you can do as much homework as you want. I just kind of, especially with the bow too, like they'll get, as far as I'm concerned, like I know there are people who don't use blinds to hunt with bows, but I really also don't have that confidence. If I'm going to use a bow, I'm going to be tucked behind something. And I think there's just a little bit extra that way too, that birds can be really wary of that, especially at certain times, especially like bright sunshine. And I've had that happen more than I care to admit. But again, it always turns into a good story in the end. Kind of going back to how people interact with turkey hunting and how much different it is than deer hunting. The other thing is that like with the way that the weeks are set up, I've known, some guys, obviously, like when the bow season or the gun season is going on for deer, if somebody hasn't killed their animal yet, like they're to themselves, they're not helping out anybody. They're, it's very like closed, and I'm not going to tell you where I've gotten this deer in the past or that sort of thing. Yep. This is a secret spot and that sort of stuff.
I pull that with Tyler once in a while.
I found it's very, you get far more camaraderie with the turkey seasons and how they're set up. And somebody might say, oh, I'll call for you for your season and I'll go out with you, because not everybody is hunting at the exact same time like they are with deer. And somebody might kill their bird in first season and say, hey, I didn't even get to my second or third setups. Those are still great. Like let's go out there and try and that sort of thing. And they'll actually say, like, cause they missed that opportunity for themselves. Like, you get one bird for that season, and once you get it, like you're done. Yep. So I've had that too, where I used, I went to my first spot, like it's my rock star setup. I'm still curious what's going on at my second and third setup, and I've helped out friends that way as well.
And I think sometimes it's more enjoyable tagging along with somebody and calling for them.
Yeah.
And I can remember one particular hunt that Tyler and I were on a piece of property that we had birds come in, and they ended up spooking, and we made a quick dash to the backside of the property, and 20 minutes later you dropped them. Mm-hmm. So we could tell so many turkey stories, and that's where it's gonna be easy for me. That's gonna be easy for me to get sidetracked. So we're not gonna try to keep telling stories, but
it's good though. I mean, that's part of the hunt too, right? Like the story makes everything.
Exactly. And every hunt is different. No matter how many turkeys you kill or whatever, or deer.
Right.
I think with turkeys in general, I think every hunt is different.
I think turkey, like you said, every hunt is so much different. Mm-hmm. It's like I don't even know one hunt that has ever been the same.
The same.
And so
even on the same property.
Yeah, that's what the thing. You hunt one property in the same year out of the same blind. The birds might roost in a different area, or this might happen or that might happen. I remember one in particular. We hunted this spot, right just behind my house here a little ways. We shot 5 adult toms off of one property in one season. Yep. The next year we go in there and there's toms everywhere again. They just respawn.
That's where they want to be.
But we hunted that spot and we shot 2 birds on this side of the woods and 2 birds on this side of the woods. Then our 5th bird was like way down the field, and it was a reaped bird that roosted in a spot that I've never even seen him roost before. Well, we've been chasing him around for the last 4 weeks.
Right,
so things change. But I think that's where turkey hunting is such a great way to get multiple people out in the woods and still interact. It's kind of like duck hunting, but on steroids.
Yeah,
way better than duck hunting.
Oh yeah, hands down.
Yeah. So, now with that being said, Josh has sitting in front of us. He's got 2 calls that are on the market.
Yes.
And can I even mention the third one that's...
Yeah, you can mention the third one.
Okay, so he has a prototype call here that I've never seen anything like it before. So we're very excited to listen to it and stuff like that.
You're getting me excited too.
Well, turkey hunting in general makes me excited.
Yeah. Easy,
boy.
So, Josh, if you would explain your calls, the names, and give us a little rundown on them.
All right, so we're going to start out with the first box call I started to make. It's a walnut box call. Let's see. It's a single strike zone call, which means you can only use one side for making the call. This one is called Stage 5 Clinger. And I have to give my wife Kayla credit for that name.
I like that name.
I've honestly gotten so much feedback, like awesome feedback on the name. So this is a very cool sounding call. I think it's Tyler's favorite call.
By far my favorite. Yep.
So that means a lot to me.
Yep.
But so this is a pretty cool call. The color turned out really nice, and it's just a nice sounding call. So I don't know if you want me to play with it a little bit.
Yeah, give us a couple yelps.
Right. So we're just going to do some yelps on it, and then some cutting, and then we'll call it good, and we'll go to the next one. So that was the stage 5 clinger.
She sounds dedicated.
I know.
And also, Josh, I should mention, you've got some great videos up, I think on Facebook, is that correct? Or
Facebook and Instagram.
And Instagram,
Yep.
which is where I've seen all of your videos so far. And I would highly recommend connecting with you on both platforms, following what you're doing, because it's great content. Aside from what I'm able to see and hold in my hands, it's cool just being able to kind of see the progress that's being made. And I like your etcher or whatever that is, like your...
the laser engraver.
The
I actually have
engraver
a guy that does that.
Okay. But it's amazing. You can see the personalization that goes into every single call, and it's fascinating. You know what I mean? Like, you think, you buy a call from a big box store and you think that they're all, like assembly line and that sort of thing, but you can actually see you making each and every single one of these calls, and it's awesome seeing it go from just a piece of wood to finished product. That's fun.
And I think for me personally, I think it's important for people to hear what the calls sound like before they were to place an order, because one thing that kind of drives me a little crazy, I bought, calls from Fleet Farm or whatever, and from big brands, and I just didn't like the sound. They just didn't appeal to me.
It's tough, you kind of go in blind. You hope you hope that you can use them before you buy them. And I've been in places, and it's, at times it's like, oh, can I really do this here? And people look at you and things like that. But
I think they started.
Just let it rip.
Yeah, I think they stopped doing that because too many people were ripping them in the store. But, I've got one box call that it's like always my go-to call. And I had it for I think I got it 10 years ago, and that company doesn't make them anymore. And, so it was kind of important for me to kind of build a call that was similar to that.
Sure.
And put my own touches on it. So, but yeah, so moving along, we're going to go with this next call is a 2-sided strike zone box call. It's made out of cherry. The paddle and box are both made out of cherry. And this one sounds, I've become more of a fan of this one too. Just the more and more I play with them in the shop. This call, you can really control the volume on this thing very well. I mean, when you use a box call, you don't want to hold the sides, because you're gonna alter the sound of a call. And so basically, you just put your hand on the bottom. But with this call, you put some pressure on the side, and you can really muffle it down. So if that bird's coming in closer, you can just put a little pressure on the side, and it softens the call. So which is pretty cool. It's really neat. So I'll throw some yelps on this one.
What's that one called?
This one is Little Redhead.
All right.
So thanks, Tyler.
Yep.
So that is Little Redhead.
So now you changed wood.
Yes.
Why?
Each species will have its own sound, its own pitch, and the whole characteristic of the sound of the call will be different.
Okay, so
wood densities is a big factor.
And you'll get a louder call, softer call,
raspier.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So now, when this prototype call that's coming up, I've never seen a call made out of this type of wood, and and a lot of people might not like that, might not consider that type of wood for a box call because it's not a high density wood.
Right.
But when you're talking about a box call, a lot of people don't want to finish birds with a box call because they are louder and more aggressive.
Yep.
But this particular one, you can explain it. It's a game changer.
Yeah.
As far as finishing birds, so.
Yeah, this one. So I came out with this one. I've been wanting to make one out of cedar, and I know there's a couple different styles of calls, in the turkey world, that they use cedar for calls or whatever. And but I wanted to make a box call, and this call is gonna be ideal for calm days, or I think more open areas where you don't need a lot of volume and pitch to get that call to carry out. This is you don't need to use a lot of pressure on this call. So as far as putting pressure down the paddle, so I've got a name picked out for this one, but I'm still trying to figure out if I'm going to name it that call or name it whatever. And but I'm going to throw some calls out on this one, and
and play with this particular call. It's a lot easier to get small, real light putts and purrs out of it.
Yeah.
So kind of
it's a very good purring box.
Yeah,
that's
do that
for sure.
too.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, it's soft and sweet, and I think throwing that in the mix in your backpack, having a stage 5 clinger or a little redhead, and then the cedar box call, that could be the factor of it totally change your hunt.
So when are you thinking that the cedar box call may hit the market?
Soon.
Okay.
It'll be soon, probably within the next week or two.
So you're thinking by mid-April for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
perfect.
Definitely. The goal is to get a couple more box calls out on my line, as we're coming into turkey season. So, and then I've got some plans over the summer to develop my own friction pot calls. So
cool.
I'm going to kind of expand into the slate and the glass calls, and then maybe eventually get into mouth calls. But still we'll see where it goes.
Well, this all sounds great at the moment. I can't wait to try it. I'll definitely be bringing along your call into my pack this spring. So, what else we got?
What's one last time? How can people get a hold of you to order a call?
So you can go directly to my online shop at gobbler-ridge-calls.myshopify.com. Or it might be easier to go to my Instagram or Facebook page, and I have a direct link to where you can just click on the link, and it'll take you right to my shop, and then you'll see the selections that I have.
And that's Gobbler Ridge Calls both on Instagram and Facebook?
Correct.
Excellent. We'll link that up in the description wherever you find this podcast.
And if you send him a direct message and you tell him you listen to this podcast, you get 10% off your purchase. Plus, you can stop in at Josh's shop, and he will run you through. That's going to be like the coolest part is people don't realize how versatile a box call is, and you can show them that in the shop. Yeah. We're going to try to get some more tutorials out here as the season rolls on. I'm really hoping that I can talk Dave into doing just a pile of turkey hunting videos this spring.
Whatever I have time for.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. We got a big lineup of people going out, and it's gonna be a good spring.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I think as of right now, I'll be out every season, either for my tags or calling or whatever, just to tag along and help. I think if you've never tried turkey hunting or you have just a curiosity, I think it would be important just to reach out to somebody that you know and be like, hey, can I come turkey hunting or whatever? Yeah. I mean, it's hard to explain the emotions that you go through during a hunt like this, and it's like you said, it's a great way to get somebody else introduced to it, and it's addictive.
And one last thing, if you have never turkey hunted and you want to try turkey hunting, feel free to shoot us a message, whether it's me, Josh, or Dave, or Avid Outdoors page. Send us an email at avidoutdoorspodcast@gmail.com. And we can try to get you hooked up either with one of us to go out for the year, or next year's Learn to Hunt program. We can get you signed up for that, which is a great opportunity to learn how to do it in the safest way possible. So
exactly.
Shoot us a message.
Yep, we'd love to hear from you for sure.
Let us know what you want to hear on the next podcast.
This is Avid Outdoors.
Does this hat look stupid?
Your face looks stupid.